78.95% of quarterbacks who have rushed for 500 plus yards across the last 5 seasons finished as a top 12 quarterback for fantasy football. And the study that I did, it was actually a top 10 quarterback for fantasy football. Here are 7 players this could apply for in 2024. Number 1, Lamar Jackson. Even with throwing for a career high in yards in 2023, he still led all quarterbacks with 821 rushing yards. 6 straight seasons of 695 plus rushing yards, 5 straight with 764 plus, 2 seasons over 1,000 yards rushing. He's been a top 8 quarterback in fantasy points per game for all 5 seasons as a starter. Number 2, Josh Allen, 510 plus rushing yards in 5 out of 6 of his seasons played. 2 seasons of 776 and 763 rushing yards. 4 straight seasons finishing top 3 in fantasy points per game, with 3 of those being number 1 in fantasy points per game. It could be a season where he runs more because they have pretty average wide receivers on the roster. Number 3, very obvious, Jalen Hurts, rushed for 605 to 782 yards in all 3 seasons as a starter. Top 6 in fantasy points per game for 3 straight seasons and top 2 the last 2 seasons. Number 1 in red zone carries in back-to-back seasons. Number 4, Anthony Richardson. Small sample size window as a rookie last year, but he averaged 34 rushing yards per game, which ranked 5th for quarterbacks. That times 17 games would be 578 rushing yards. He averaged 54.5 rushing yards per game in his final Florida college season, so we know it's in his profile. 4.43 speed at 6'4", 244 pounds. I guess today he said he's 255 pounds. He's a freak athlete. Top 4 quarterback in his 2 full games as a rookie. It was a small sample size, but it means a lot. Kyler Murray, number 5. Even coming off an ACL tear last season, Kyler averaged 30.5 rushing yards per game, which ranked 9th per game and would be over 500 yards across a 17-game span. 418 rushing yards in just 11 games in 2022, 544, and then 819 rushing yards in his first 2 NFL seasons. Quarterback 7, quarterback 4, quarterback 3, quarterback 11 in points per game from 2022 back to 2019. Number 6, Jaden Daniels. ESPN has him projected at 577 rushing yards, 710, 885, and then 1,134 rushing yards in his final 3 college seasons. He's the only player in FBS history to throw for 12,000 yards and rush for 3,000 yards in a career. Major dual threat profile. And the number 2 overall pick from this year's NFL draft. And then this last guy, it's a bit spicy, but Daniel Jones. And there's a lot of question marks because he's coming off of an ACL tear. But he did have 708 rushing yards in 2022. That season times averaged the 10th most fantasy points per game. 423 rushing yards in 2020 in just 14 games. He averaged the 4th most rushing yards per game in 2023 in his short 6-game sample size at 34.3, which times 17 would be 583.1. Target rushing quarterbacks in fantasy football because